Good evening, everybody, and welcome to the Performance, Governance and Audit Committee meeting on Thursday, the 21st of July 2022. My name is Councillor Wendy Stamp and I am the chairman of this committee. Members, we are streaming this meeting live as well as recording, and by being present in the meeting, you are giving your consent to being recorded. During each item, please put your hand up to indicate if you wish to speak. I will then invite you at the appropriate time. Please note that the YouTube live stream sound recording is dependent on the correct use of microphones. Therefore, can I ask that when invited to speak, you remember to turn on your microphone and turn it off again when finished. Please reference a page and paragraph number when referring to the agenda papers and keep your contributions as clear and concise as possible. Moving on to agenda item 2, members, apologies for absence. May I have apologies for absence, please, Berna?
Yes, Chairman, we've received apologies for absence from Councillor Skeens. Thank you.
And I'd like to say that obviously Mr Dodson is absent as well at the moment. Moving on, agenda item 3, it is recommended that the minutes of the meeting held on the 9th of June 2022, found on pages 5 to 14, are approved as a true and accurate record. I so move. Do I have a seconder for this motion? Councillor Fleming. Members? Do we all agree by assent? Thank you. Declarations of interest. To disclose the existence and nature of any disclosable pecuniary interests, other registrable, I've said that right, interest and non-registrable interests relating to items of business and on the agenda, having regard to paragraph 9 and appendix B of the Code of Conduct for members. Members are reminded that they are also required to disclose any such interest as soon as they become aware, should the need arise throughout the meeting. Members. Councillor Fleming.
Thank you, Chair. A registrable interest as a member of Essex County Council, any item on the agenda that is relevant. Thank you.
And I also will have the same registrable interest as a member of Essex County Council, but I don't see anything on the agenda tonight. Public participation. I can advise that we've not received any submissions from members of the public. Right, moving on to agenda item 6, found on pages 15 and 16. To consider the report of the Director of Resources and the report of the internal auditor from A to G on the agenda. I'm going to hand over to Mr. Rubin, please, to present the reports. Thank you.
Thank you very much and good evening, everyone. Because there are so many reports to present, I'm proposing doing this in 3 different chunks, if that's okay. So items A and B together as the first part. I'll take any questions at that point, and then items C, D and E as the second part, and then finally items F and G. So if that's acceptable, Chairman, I'll move on to items A and B.
That's acceptable to me. Members, are you agreed? Yeah, agreed. Thank you, Mr. Rubin. Okay, so the progress report is fairly straightforward. We've got here today 2 reports from 21-22 programme and 2 for the 22-23. We have 2 further reports just to finish off the 2021-22 year, which are in draft. So that's contract management and commercialisation. So we're just finalising management responses on those. On the follow-up, on the whole, progress is reasonable. There are still some areas that need to be followed up, and they include flood management and safeguarding. Those will be followed up as part of new audits that we'll be doing in 2022-23. So we'll pick up those as part of those audits. On the whole, otherwise there's pretty good progress, particularly in 21-22 recommendations. But there is still a high priority one outstanding on affordable housing. But as I say, overall, I think reasonable progress. So I'll stop at that point, just on items A and B, if there are any questions. Yep, Councillor Stilts, please.
Thank you, Madam Chair. On the page 29, the flood risk, why is it still overdue? And if I go on to the other 2 questions that I've got, then you can answer, or the officers can answer them all. Page 33, 1.1, affordable housing. Can we have an explanation why the due date has been moved from April 22 to September? And can we be assured that this KPI will be set up by then? 1.2, again, can we be assured that this will be implemented by the end of next week? And there is another one, which is management of property. Will this target for September be met, or will they be put off again?
Mr. Rubins, do you want to answer anything, or you want
I
to
think
go
that's
to the
mainly
office
for
next?
officers. I mean, I understand there's been resourcing pressures in a number of areas, but I think it's for officers to answer.
Mr. Gaylor, do you want? Oh, sorry, Mr. Holmes.
Sorry, Joe. Yes, so Mr. Geller can pick up the first couple of items, and I can pick up the assets point.
Can I jump in first to say about the affordable housing? I think we all know that we are working really hard to achieve that. And I think it's not just a fault of, I know Mr. Gaylor is responsible manager for it, but I think it's not just his responsibility. We are working really hard to try and address the affordable homes issue. Mr. Gaylor.
Sorry, just in relation to the affordable housing target, affordable 1.1, where it talks about ongoing monitoring and delivery against the action plan of affordable housing targets. Now, this data is actually collated. So it's being done, it's carried out by an officer, John Swords. But what is happening is the data needs to be further disseminated to CLT via the balanced scorecard or shared with members in the Strategic Housing Board meeting. There is an example of what the data looks like on page 131. So that work is happening. Once it turns up on the balanced scorecard, I'll be able to report this as complete. It's more a case of the data's always been collected. It's just the reporting upwards.
Okay,
Thank you.
I'm quite happy with that. Are you, Councillor Stilts?
Yeah, that's right.
Your next question was to whom?
I think that was again to Mr. Geller, which was 1.2, which is, can we be assured that this date will be, this will be implemented by the end of next week, which is what the date on there is for?
Yeah, so my apologies. This will slip slightly. So just to explain, the housing strategy is basically still valid. There are still many points in there which, are deliverable. What we need to do is basically just put a report to the next S&R committee, which will be on the 15th of the 9th. So that's when hopefully it will be extended. To give reassurance, though, the the strategy is still active, still live, and it still forms the basis of the service delivery. So it's not like it's not in place. It is in place. It just needs extending.
Just a bit slow.
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
And I think the final one was on management of property, was it? Can I just say before anybody answers, Councillor Hull's just joined us, Bernard. Can you make a note that Councillor Hull's has joined us? Welcome. That's fine.
Thank you, Chair.
Oh, it's you, is it? Sorry,
Yes, it is.
Mr. Holmes.
So yes, management of property. We've now linked this to the new asset management working groups. That was on the agenda for discussion, which is, I think, as late as yesterday in terms of taking that forward. There are issues around resources and the level of detail that we will need to put to this process. So officers will be looking at the detail and how we might take this forward as part of that. And obviously we'll be reporting back through the asset management working group on that. I can't give you the definitive as whether we will. I don't think we will have completed that work. It's quite a large project by September 22, but I'd hope we would have laid the foundation so we know sort of timescale and what it is we can be doing to achieve the outcome desired.
Okay, thank you. So that's all right, Councillor Stilts. Anybody else, members? Oh, yes, Councillor Fleming.
Thank you, Chair. I think the Councillor Stilts' other question was about flood risk. Yes, I was going to give Damien the opportunity.
Thank you.
Thank you. So there has been a fair bit of work around flood risk in the background. You're right, there isn't a flood risk strategy in place. There isn't a SUDS in place specifically for Malden. And that's because while we hold the risk for flooding, the actual partners that deal with it as an action as the lead agency are the Environment Agency and Essex County Council. So we're very much have to link in with them. So they actually have those strategies and then they're in place. We are looking at trying to put some more, I wouldn't say resource, but additional support into that work stream. So hopefully more details will start coming around shortly. There is the flood strategy master plan, which details all the works that are happening across the district. I'll arrange for that to be distributed to all members so you can see what is actually on plan. And there is the bones of a Malden light strategy, just to give you some guidance and context, and hopefully that will be shared as well soon.
Excellent, thank you. That's all right. Mr. Rubins, I must apologise. I called you Mr. Rubin. I missed your S off, so please accept my apologies. I think you can move on to C, D and E.
Yes, thank you. So we're on to page 37 of the papers now. So there's three reports I'll talk to now. So the first one is the workforce management report, where we're giving substantial assurance. That's our highest level of assurance on both the design and effectiveness of controls. And we thought this was a very well managed area, and given how important it is to the council, it was very positive. So there's clearly been a lot of focus around this area. You're doing a lot of work around hybrid working and formalising plans there. Staff are being consulted and their views taken seriously. So a lot of good things there. And we only came up with one minor improvement, which is just in terms of the strategy, expanding it when it's revised to include areas like staff empowerment and diversity and inclusion. So as I said, a very positive report there. If I move on to 6D, that's the customer relationship management report. So that's page 53 of your papers. That's had a moderate assurance for both design and effectiveness. So the council has had issues with its current customer relationship management system, FirmStep, and it's doing a lot of good work to replace that with a new system, Dynamics 365. So the current system has a number of issues. It includes quite a lot of staff time needs to be put in because of duplication of input, because it doesn't link in properly to the council's other systems. So it's very positive to see how that is going. We came up with 2 points there. One is the need to have a benefits realisation document. So that will set out what benefits you expect to see from the new system. And then obviously it helps us as auditors or management to go back and see whether those benefits have actually happened in practice. So that wasn't done for FirmStep for a number of reasons, but management are committed to do that for the new system. And secondly, just making sure you have a very a comprehensive log of issues for what's coming out of FirmStep. There are quite a few issues coming out, but we thought there needed to be more detail about, who raised the issue, what's the timing, what sort of priority, and again, that has been accepted by management. So, we've got a good action plan for that one. And then just finally in this block of reports, our annual opinion, which we give each year, summarises all of our work. That's on page 67 of your papers, and we're giving moderate assurance overall. That's our second highest level. It's the same as we gave last year. I think again positive. The majority of reports that we did came out substantial assurance on design. On effectiveness, they're more moderate than substantial, but we had no limited opinions at all in the year. And given the sort of very challenging circumstances that have continued over the last year with COVID and resource constraints and so on, I think that again is a good performance. So there are some areas for improvement. We've talked about the follow-up and just making sure all recommendations are implemented when has been agreed. And that may be not just around implementation, but also maybe officers being a bit more realistic about when they can do things when we agree the original report. Sometimes I think perhaps they're a bit ambitious. So just making sure we've got realistic timescales and that those are met in practice. But overall, as I said, a positive report, and our own performance, we've had good feedback on our work. And good quality assessments as well. So overall, we think we're doing okay, but obviously always subject to others' opinions. So I'll stop at that point with that block C, D and E, and happy to take any comments or questions.
Members? Oh, Councillor Stevens.
Thank you, Chair. My question is about the DASH system. Throughout my whole first year of being a member, I never heard of DASH, and suddenly everyone's talking about DASH. There's lots of mentions of DASH in here. I raised a dangerous structure request about 10 days ago, and after 3 days I then raised a fresh service request because I hadn't heard anything, and I thought surely a dangerous structure should be responded to instantly. And it turned out that it was because of a DASH problem that it hadn't got through, and eventually, although I had a dangerous structure record number, it was blank or something like that. I found that really, really alarming, and I'd be interested to know if we have got problems ongoing with DASH and what's being done about those, please. Thank you.
Mr. Holmes, will you be able to take that one?
I'm afraid I won't be able to take one this evening. I don't know if Mr. Leslie was. It's probably a technical matter that I've not been made aware of, so apologies.
Nobody at online, is there? Can't see an officer that would be able to address that.
No, we can take that away and have a look. I had nothing reported that there's ongoing issues. Of course, there could well have been, as you've pointed out, an issue at that particular time. I'm not aware of ongoing issues, but certainly look into that. And of course, the report does pick up some of the limitations of our current system and the steps we're taking to address that. So, yeah, I will pick that up with the team. Thank you.
Anybody else? No. Mr. Rubins, are you doing the last two?
Yes, last block of reports, so we're nearly there. 6F, which is on page 85, is our risk maturity assessment for 2022-23. There's no opinion on this one. We use a certain methodology that basically benchmarks you, puts you on a scale, and we can compare you to other councils. And on the whole, again, the council's doing well when we benchmark against others, and has moved up since our last assessment on I think 4 out of 5 of the areas. The only one that you haven't moved up on is risk mitigation, but on all the others you have moved up the scale. So good progress there, very good to see. So on the whole, we're seeing risks being well recorded, they're being updated, they're being reviewed. Risk management's been taken seriously, and it's good to see. The areas that we are drawing attention to is just making sure you highlight your strategic objectives, which perhaps are showing most highest risks of not being achieved, and just making sure that's reported. Some inconsistency in risk descriptions and reviews and reporting, particularly in sort of local department level. And then going back to this point about risk mitigation, which is, what actions have you got in place to address the risk? We think they could be stronger, particularly where you've set a target, you're away from the target. You need to have very clear actions to see how you're going to get from where you currently are to where your target score is. So those are things that have been accepted. But as I say, on the whole, again, I would say that was a positive report, and good to see the progress from last time. And then finally, just 6G, which is the corporate governance report. So this is given substantial assurance on design, moderate on control. So again, quite a positive report. We're on page 107 onwards here. So a number of strengths around your corporate governance. We're pleased to see you're intending to adopt the LGA model on councillor code of conduct. You're making sure that you have declarations of interest. We've seen that already today, of course. There's induction, mandatory training for members. From what we saw, robust debate, overview and scrutiny as well. So a number of good things there to report on. The couple of areas that we've highlighted. One is around the planning advisory service report about changes you could make to your planning arrangements. Now, it's not for us to say whether that report is right. It's obviously up to members to determine what sort of system you want, but from looking at the documentation of the discussion, it was all focused around one area in that report, and the other areas weren't really covered, or at least we couldn't see the evidence that they were. So we're saying that when you look at a report like that with lots of recommendations for improvement, just making sure that debate covers the whole of that report. So I think that perhaps that discussion is going to be happen again, so that there is that opportunity just to debate that. And secondly was just around the training on scrutiny, which was only attended by 48% of members. That was run by LGA, so it would be good to see obviously a higher percentage. I know again there may have been reasons why members couldn't attend that, but we'd like to see that encouraged and more people attending that. But those were the only two areas from that report, and I'll stop at this point and take again any comments or questions.
Members, Mr. Councillor Keys.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I just mentioned it. 48% of attendance. That's not good, is it? And this is compulsory training. And this is on all aspects.
No.
Scrutiny. It was.
Yeah, it's just on all scrutiny. It's only 48%. Right. Okay.
Councillor Redwoods.
Sorry, I misunderstood. Is that members of the scrutiny committee?
Well, I would have thought it would have been. Is that right?
So it's not 48% of members.
No.
It's of the committee. Yeah. Thank you.
Ms Hughes, did you want to speak?
Just to confirm that one was members voted that the overview and scrutiny training should be compulsory for all members, but only 48% percent of members then attended the training.
Okay. Anybody else? Councillor Fluker, please.
Thank you, Chairman. I just really wanted to seek some advice from Mr. Rubins in relation to page 111. You know, as auditors, do you think that this issue should be sent back to full council for consideration? Because there seems to be some aversion towards that.
I would certainly like to see it being fully considered by members, whether that is full council or not. I mean, I'm not quite clear about the right forum, but we would definitely like to see it properly considered by members, and as I said, fully documented that all aspects have been properly debated and considered.
So if I could come back, Chairman, then I'll happily support that, Mr. Rubins, and bring forward yet another motion to council. But I'll do that. I'll speak to the Director of Service Delivery before I do that, because it's certainly something that I would support, bearing in mind what's happened really recently with costs awarded against this council. Thank you.
Okay. Anybody else? Councillor Edwards again.
Looking at the report, it says that the current process of the chair automatically moving the office recommendation that's not the case. No.
Which page?
111.
Oh, the planning.
Second paragraph. The current process of the chair automatically moving the officer's recommendation is not actually the case at the moment. We don't do that anymore. Have I...
£5, is it, or £10, members? 10, because it's...
Sorry,
yes,
Madam Chairman.
I'm just thinking
chairman
about
doesn't.
it.
The chairman
Well,
doesn't.
I think it's the chairman's. Some chairmen do, and some chairmen don't. Because Councillor
Oh,
Fleming and I just discussed this before earlier. Because yes, yes, you will please.
Councillor Edwards, I think that was about the only thing from that report we actually took forward.
Yeah,
It's the only thing I can think of. And the reason being that, unlike in most committees like here, we're debating the officer's report. In planning, we're debating the application, not the report. So, and it does potentially look like predetermination if the chairman starts plonking a recommendation before you've even started. I know it isn't, but so many people think, but somebody made a proposal before there was any debate, and that's not how it works, but people in general don't know that. So I was very grateful for that being recommended and that we took it forward. I thought we all did, but perhaps we don't.
Councillor Edwards.
Sorry, I thought that we no longer did that. None of the area committees did that, because it's a perception that the public have that it could be predetermination. So when on central, we don't do that. The chairman doesn't recommend the officer's recommendation before the debate. We don't, but it does say in here that's the current case.
Chair,
I'm
chair.
getting a bit confused
I
there.
know I'm small, but I am still here, members. Put your microphone on, please. Can you put the microphone on, please?
Sorry, I do know the feeling, Chairman. But if you go back far enough, first we didn't, then we did,
That's right.
and now we don't. And for a while it was recommended that we do that, and most of us did. I don't know how happy we were with it, but we did it because we were advised to.
Yeah.
I was greatly relieved not to, because I think members should have a chance to discuss and ask questions of the officers and so on, so everything's clear in their mind. Then hopefully someone will put a proposal which might or might not be the officer's recommendation, and we can have a proper debate on what's on the table.
I totally agree, but it actually proves that it needs to go back to council. So I think Councillor Fluker's motion may be supported. Leader.
Thank you very much, Chairman, for letting me speak. Regarding Councillor Fluker's suggestion of a motion, when I read the paper, and I looked at page 112, the recommendation, it does say that a report from the CWP should be reconsidered by council if the council is unwilling to accept a recommendation at this time, about doing some. And it says management response, the governance issues and wider budget concerns mean we will do an urgent review and report for council to take back CGW. So I took that to mean it would be a report going to council. I thought that's what that was meaning, that there's no, therefore I couldn't see the need possibly for the motion that Councillor Lucas alluded to, because to me, that just seems to say what's going to happen as a result of this.
Okay, I take on board your comment, but Councillor Fluker did say he was going to speak to an officer before actually putting the motion together, which I thought was absolutely is agreeable, really. And then I think it's Councillor Fluker's choice.
I'm
but
grateful, Chairman, because you heard me exactly right. Thank you.
Yeah.
Chairman, I'm not saying I'm against the motion. What I'm saying is when I read
Yes,
the report on here, management response says there'll be a report to council to take back the CWG points.
Yeah, yes, I totally agree with you, but I'd like to just clarify actually what Councillor Fluker did say. Members, anybody else? No? Okay, so I've got to put the recommendation first, members, before you actually agree it. So the recommendations are that the committee considers comments and approves the following: the internal audit progress report, July 2022 at 6A. Little 2, follow-up of the recommendations report, July 2022 6B. Little 3, workforce management, May 22 6C. Little 4, I'll say customer relationship management, CRM, March 22 6D. 5, internal audit report, annual report and annual statement of assurance, 21 22 6E. 6, risk maturity, June 22 6F. And finally, 7, corporate governance, July 22 6G. Can I take that en masse and have assent, members? Agreed? Thank you. Excellent. Bear with me. Thank you, Mr. Rubins. I think that's you finished, isn't it? Would you, if you'd like to leave, we can just wait 30 seconds if you want to get your computer and go. You're okay. Okay. I know our meetings are really fascinating. Right, members, moving on to agenda item 7, found on pages 119 to 134, including Appendix 1. Appendix 1 is on pages 123 to 134. This is the infrastructure funding statement, now referred to as the IFS. The purpose of the report is to provide members of this committee with an update on the monitoring of Section 106 planning obligations and to seek approval of the Morden District Infrastructure Funding Statement for the financial year 2021 to 2022. It's in accordance with the Council's legal duties. I'm going to hand over the report to Anne Altoff-Shortland, our lead specialist, planning policy and implementation officer, who will present the report, and she's on remotely. So good evening.
Thank you very much. This is just an update report really from December 2021, and it's to bring the council in line with the end of the financial year. Previously, we've always published these in December, but that doesn't really churn with everything else that we do, because we produce an authority monitoring report at the end of the financial year, the 5-year supply at the end of the financial year. We monitor everything financially yearly in this way. So this is really just to bring the infrastructure funding statement in line with the end of the financial year as well. So there's not an enormous amount of change to the report. It's just been updated since it came before you in December. I've changed the layout slightly to make it more visually presentative, and I've added an appendix at the end about county councils' spend and how much money they've got and how much money they're waiting to receive. So I haven't it checked with them, but it may not be absolutely 100% accurate, but it's what we know and they've said it's okay. So what we're going to do now, from now on, is we will do this roughly at this time of year instead of December each year to line up our monitoring processes.
Thank you. Councillor Fleming.
So, hi, evening, Anne. Sorry to jump in. I thought central government stipulated end of December every year. Is that not correct?
What they say is you have to legally produce it by December. You don't have to. So legally, you've got to publish by the end of December. But it doesn't matter when in the year you actually publish. And a lot of councils do like we want to do, which is after the financial year, because that then makes sense. Because you're dealing with money, aren't we? We're dealing with money. So no, we don't have to do it in December. That's not it's not a rule around this procedure.
Okay, thank you. Members, I'd like to open it up. Have we got any questions? Councillor Fleming, did you have another question?
I'll go later.
Leader.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. Appendix 1, page 133, it's talking about Appendix A, it's the top list of County Council S106 funding details. It says the funding has been spent on the following: maintenance to 2 cane crossings in Malden. Is that across the whole of Malden, in the district? And are they really meaning 106 funding was spent on maintenance on 2 cane crossings in Malden? Is that development aligned with the what have been agreed through planning commissions, or am I reading something wrong?
Could you help, please, Anne?
I think it's in Malden town itself. I don't think it's across the district. I can check though, and I can email the answer out.
Oh.
It just sounded more like a SIL type of thing to me, where it could be something not totally attached to a planning application, more like something to benefit something within the community, because it does say maintenance to 2 cane crossings.
Yes, it does.
Whether or not it's those that might be associated with the development south of Linebrook Way, I don't know, because there's one we put in there, and actually a couple. But anyway, I just thought I'd ask that question because maintenance seems to be, to me, something that was already there.
Rather new. Yeah, thank you. Councillor Fleming.
I'll go later. Thank you, Chair.
Who was next? No, nobody else has got a question. I got a question. I think I raised it at the meeting. Did you manage to look at the investment on Burnham and Crouch Primary School from Essex?
Yeah, I've emailed the county. They haven't come back to me, so I shall email out the answer when I get it.
Would you please? Because I've queried these figures, if that's okay, and I've just declared that's a non-pecuniary interest. But Councillor Keys.
Madam Chairman, it's page 133. It says the County Council are presently preparing to deliver a new primary school in Malden and Haybridge, an extension of both the Plume, Malden and Ormiston's Rivers Academy, Burnham. They're still waiting for the relevant triggers. How far are we away from these triggers? Because these houses are certainly, every time I go down the road now, there's another one seem to be there.
Do you have that information to hand, Anne?
No, I don't. The primary school in Malden, I think the funding is nearly all in for that one. I'll have to check. I can check and get back to you.
If you could, and then just send it round to all members. I think it'd be really interesting because obviously members are getting queries in their inboxes about lack of infrastructure, and it'd be nice to actually just be able to quantify and qualify these figures. Councillor Fleming.
Thank you, Chair. And I just wanted to ask about the infrastructure funding gap between what was in the local plan and actually what's deliverable. Are you comfortable with discussing that now, or would you prefer to circulate to members after the meeting?
No, we can discuss it. It's fine. Yeah, it's fine.
Okay, so I just wanted to a sort of ballpark figure.
I can't tell you. Because I think I was trying to think. There's a funding gap on the South Malden Relief Road, but I can't tell you exactly what it is because the final design for the road has not been done yet. Once that's done, then they'll be able to cost it out, and we'll be able to tell you the exact figure. For schools, I think there is. I think we're okay. I don't think there is a funding cap. Health, I think we're okay. They haven't said there's a funding gap. They haven't told us there is, so I think we're okay. The main one is going to be the relief road. That's the main one.
Thank you, Anne.
Thank you. Members, Councillor Stevens, please.
Thank you, Chair. This probably just my understanding, not following how the report works. On page 126, it shows the section 106 monies received for 21-22, And they're in three broad categories: affordable housing, youth facilities, and a small amount for monitoring of Section 106. But then further down on the next few pages, the items listed are nothing to do with youth or affordable housing. There are things like allotments. I don't understand why they aren't under the same categories, please. Thank you.
Anne?
They're split down into they're split down into codes on our spreadsheet. So allotments has got its own code. So whenever we pull the report out, it will come out as a separate figure. So youth facilities is one lot of funding, allotments is another lot of funding, and it's because when we ask for Section 106s, we'll negotiate those sums of money separately. So they'll pay X amount for youth, X amount for allotments, and then it drops into a separate monitoring box, so to speak, so we can keep an eye on each different form of Section 106 payment.
You can come back. Gosh, you can.
Thank you. Yes, I mean, absolutely, it should be categorised at a quite a granular level, but I just don't understand why the income is showing that it's mainly for affordable housing and youth facilities on page 126, and then the next page says that it wasn't spent on those things, it was spent on other things, which I didn't really get. Thank you.
It's because it's not been spent.
It can only be spent on what it comes in on. It probably means that there was no spend on those separate things.
Did you want to?
During that financial year.
Mr. Leslie.
Yes, thanks. It's about the income that came in 21-22. So that's the income for the amounts we received in 21-22. But we were received income in years before that. And I think that's what that section on expenditure in 21-22 is saying. It's expenditure on those items, but the income for those items happened in previous years. So it's just a timing thing. Oops.
Councillor Fleming, please.
Thank you. A question for Mr. Leslie. The 423,000 for health, is that the sort of historic figure that has been in our reserves for some time? Thank you.
I think Anne may be more able to answer, but I don't think we've received any large sums for health recently, so that would have been from historic amounts and would have largely been in there. But just Anne, can you just confirm we haven't received that recently?
Is it 129?
We are on 129.
129.
Oh, the health money, yeah, that's come in over quite a long period, but none of its expiry date is due yet. But we are due some quite big spend on health in the next 12 to 18 months, I would think. So yeah, it's historic money sat there.
Okay. Okay. Thank you. Councillor Fluker, please.
Thank you. It would be nice to see what the breakdown of that money is, and when you say it's historic, where it's actually going, because obviously in Southminster we're bringing forward a new medical centre, and I know that there's a lot of money come forward from various pots over the last few years, so it'd be interesting to see a breakdown of that. I'm not expecting it now, but I think it would be useful for everybody to see it actually.
Is that possible, Anne?
What's Councillor Fluker want?
Can you speak up? He wants a breakdown of the health funding, because obviously some of it's historical and goes back a substantial amount of time, but obviously what Councillor Fluker was saying is there a health hub in Southminster as well, and he'd just really be interested to see where the money, how long the money's been there and where it's going to be spent, I would imagine. I don't want to put words in your mouth. If you want to repeat it yourself, please do.
Well, no, I mean, look, the interesting thing is if this is legacy money, I think there's two questions. Why hasn't it been spent? Because, you know, the developments that have come forward and been finished for quite some time, you would have thought that money would have been spent and gone to the local surgeries, because that's basically what happens to this. So I just think, you know, I think it's probably a Mr. Leslie question, really, because I think in the shed in the bottom of the garden, you'll blow the dust off the files and you'll find these figures and be able to give us what we want. But I think it'd be very, very interesting to see what it is, particularly if it has been sitting there a long time.
Mr. Leslie, please.
Thank you, sir. I guess in simple terms, it's a question of where did the funding come from and where's it gone? And then you can do some analysis around that, essentially, so you can see where's it come from and what's it been spent on. So yeah, absolutely.
Leader, was you about to say that?
Yeah, I agree with Councillor Fluke, and I think actually this was raised before when I think I had a briefing on this. And I think it also as members, there seems to be, when we go to help, what they want, there's just figures done from a formula that appears to be a health formula. I'm not being disrespectful to health or anything like that, but you see a sum and then you want to know that really it has been spent locally, and where exactly. So what Councillor Fluke is saying, I agree with, to see exactly perhaps where that health money is put within our district. It ties up with the development that the money's been apportioned to, because, you know, like developments in Burnham or whatever, Burnham surgeries, etc., Southminster, we've got a new surgery coming. Could we know that that money has been spent locally and where?
Yes, I think that's. Yeah, I think that you can do that, can't you, Mr. Leslie? And Anne?
Yeah, we're sort of...
It's historic, surely.
I can give a breakdown. The money will be spent in Burnham and Southminster because that's what the legal section 106 is saying. Then that's where it has to be spent. So yeah, I can send a breakdown. I'll have a look and sort that out for you.
Yeah, it would be really useful, I think, because we have had quite a lot of development in Burnham and Southminster, and I think the waiting lists have got longer and longer. Councillor Fleming. Yes.
Thank you. I raised it because I remember this coming up at the PG&A committee, 18 months ago. Councillor Stilts will probably remember it. And the point is it hasn't been spent. It's just sitting in our reserves waiting to be spent. To be fair to the officers, I think it's because engaging with the NHS is not easy. But I was hoping that sort of movement could happen on that.
So
issue.
we'd be grateful if we had the report then, and you can either send it out or it can come at the next PG&A as well to be discussed, if that's okay.
Chairman, we just need to see the spreadsheet.
You
rather
sure?
than have a report, yeah,
Okay.
thanks.
All right, thank you. Anybody? Councillor, it's gone now. Just Stevens, I've got it right all day. We've all got that problem at the moment.
Thank you, Chair. On page 129, there's a graph showing the total amount of funding that's been spent since 1992. I'm quite embarrassed, surprised that parking is the biggest expenditure. Do we also have a net figure for that? Because I would have thought that offsetting that huge expenditure would be income from the parking, where the other items on there probably don't have an income, and I'd hope that when we see the net figure, it wouldn't be greater than affordable housing, for example. So could we have the net figures, please? Thank you.
Yeah, I can provide the net figures. I just want to say about, can I just go back to the NHS? We have 6 weekly meetings with them now, and we have a rolling action log. So it's a much better system of interacting with them and getting updates and pushing them to bring forward the developments to spend the funding. Whereas we didn't have that before. So we do now. And they were rather inactive during COVID. It was quite difficult to get hold of them, quite obviously, because we were all doing other things. But yeah, the Burnham and Southminster doctor surgeries are moving ahead. You know, they are moving ahead now. So yeah, I can get the net figure for that. That's fine.
Is that all right, Councillor Stevens? Okay, Councillor Fluker.
Sorry, Chairman, I think we're sort of drifting slightly, and it's probably going to be my fault, but it's very commendable that we meet with health, but do we meet with education? Because I fear that there is an apocalypse about to arrive in the Southminster and Burnham cluster of primary schools. I've been doing quite a lot of work around that with John Whittindale and whoever the minister is at the moment, and there is a serious issue there, and none of us really seem to know how to highlight it. Essex recognise it, but it's all to do with lag, funding and numbers. And I actually was invited to count the pupils in Southminster Primary School the other day, because they don't. The roll number is nowhere near the Essex County Council roll number, and I really do believe that this is going to cause a huge problem with the local development plan.
I'm going to say something quite soft. You're a man after my own heart. I've been chasing this subject for a long time, and having the school numbers that I ring the schools at the end of the year in July. I haven't done it this year actually, so forgive me for that. And I've banged this drum. People will know at this council for ages, because Mr. Keylock, who was at the LDP, said that when we did, when they did the forecast, they had the table and they gave the forecast for numbers, and he and the inspector turned around and said, when I said the forecast is incorrect, they had to take the information from Essex County Council rather than anybody else, because they took that as being read. Now, we all know the difficulties we've got in schools. We know, we live in the wards and we live in the district. So yes, I totally agree with you, Councillor Fluke, and well done, yet another voice trying to actually rectify this. Leader, finally, and then I'm going to move the recommendation.
Just regarding education, to my knowledge, Matt Winslow, artists do have meetings with education. So I was in a conversation recently about education. So I think we're all asking this, and my interest is, and it did come up actually with the Southminster applications. I can remember the meeting very well. There were 2 Southminster applications all one night, and the question was asked, what is, because the application said that the primary schools could take the numbers, but it's the cumulative impact. That's what I'm interested in, cumulative impact, when we keep saying, right, take the numbers. Well, it might be when you look at an application in isolation, but I'm interested in how that's worked out, generated for. And I think there's a 10-year plan the county have for education as well. So those figures can't always, they must be moving all the while. And the more applications you have in, then you must look to see what your numbers are. How do they assess that to make sure the cumulative impact is covered? I'm not quite clear on that at all.
Anne, yes, please. You're muted. Oh, you're okay now. And now you're okay.
Councillor Chamber asked this question the other day actually, and funnily enough, we did have a meeting shortly afterwards with County, and so we asked them. So how they do cumulative impact is they have their 10-year plan, which they review every year. So when planning applications come in, they look at the applications against the 10-year plan. So in a way, in effect, they are taking cumulative impact into account, because the 10-year plan takes cumulative impact over a 10-year period in terms of population growth. And I presume that they will pin that 10-year plan back now to the census information that's just been produced. That's what they should be doing the next time they update it. Malden's population wasn't that far out really from the census. And we meet education exactly the same way now that we meet health, and we meet highways in the same way as well now.
Okay. Councillor Stilts.
Yeah, just a quick one. Like Councillor Fluker asked for the breakdown on the health, can we have the same for youth facilities? Because on page 29 it says how much we received for the youth facilities, but when you go on to page 30 it says we actually spent nothing on youth facilities.
I know. Yes, Anne?
Well, youth facilities has been delayed because of COVID. There were meetings and things going on, and then COVID came along, and so we've got to pick that back up.
So we'll be picking that up quickly, won't we? Because I know there's a big chunk coming to Burnham on Crouch for the youth facilities there. So that would be very interesting.
I presume so. If there's capacity in the teams, then they will start picking that up, yeah.
Yeah, well, that could be the issue. Councillor Fleming.
Thank you, Chair. And would it be possible to give a breakdown of where the spend for the youth facilities is going, whether it's Burnham, Southminster or Malden?
Yes, yeah, I've got that, yeah.
You have, good, because I know there's an appetite for a skate park in Malden. So I'm just interested to learn whether there's money there for that. Thank you.
Okay, members, well, we've given that a really good airing. I'm going to close the debate. We've gone back more than once or twice to certain members. So I'd like to propose from the chair that the following recommendations, that the committee considers the update of section 106 planning obligations, and little 2, that the committee approves the NDC infrastructure funding statement for the financial year 2021 to 22 for publication as set out in Appendix 1. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Fleming, do we agree by assent? Thank you. Lovely. Let's move on. What are we on now? 8. Bear with me, members. Yes, 8. Okay. Moving on then to agenda item 8, Equality, Diversity and Inclusion Actions Update. The annual review found on pages 135 to 154. The purpose of the report is to update the Performance, Governance and Audit Committee on the progress towards achieving the Equality, Diversity and Inclusion (EDI) objectives set out in the Equality, Diversity and Inclusion Policy. Please see below. Objective 1. We will identify the ways to improve our workforce data collection, which will be used to inform policy development and workforce strategy. Objective 2, we will provide learning opportunities for our workforce and our members to develop a wider understanding of our communities and their diverse needs. And objective 3, as officers and members, we will improve our knowledge of and our contact with all communities and ensure that communities can continue to be involved in decision-making processes. I'd like this report. It's going to be presented by Natasha Brown, I think, is it? Welcome, Natasha. Oh, is it? Yeah. 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 So, Mr. Leslie first and then Natasha. So hold on, Natasha. Thank you.
Thank you. The Council is committed to being an inclusive employer and providing inclusive services to our communities. Following the approval of the EDI policy in June 2021, the focus has been on delivering the 3 objectives outlined in that policy. The action plan detailed in the report at Appendix 1 covers what has been achieved so far and those future actions with timescales. Recommendation 2 of the report asks the committee to consider a recommendation to Council regarding a change to the Constitution to make the language gender neutral.
I think you've stole my thunder. I usually do that after the officers' report. Natasha, do you want to say anything, or are you quite happy with what Mr. Leslie's done? No?
No, my mute was on, I do apologise. No, what's been said is absolutely fine.
Okay, I'll open it up to the members. Members? Councillor Edwards.
I'd just like to make an observation, Madam Chairman.
Of course.
Item 3.5. In my previous life, my professional life, I was a senior manager with a very large Danish shipping company. When I say large, it was 600 people. And I went on many management chairing courses. The word chairman is not gender. And this was put into us quite a lot. It means managing. Chair is managing the committee. It's not a gender. That was what we were taught at this very large Danish shipping company. And I've always thought that. So that's just my observation. Thank you.
Thank you. Members? Councillor Stevens.
I think language evolves, and a word that's got man on the end means something. We don't need that bit. I know people used to say, oh, a chair is a piece of furniture, but I think we've moved on from that.
Councillor Thompson.
With apologies to Councillor Stevens, I am not a piece of furniture. I am a chairman. I am chairing the meeting. And I have to say, we've actually, in our efforts to keep everyone happy, which I'm more than willing to do, we've reached the point where we've got a Madam Chair. Now, I ask you, really, a Madam Chair? I thought we were trying to be gender neutral. If we are, can we do it properly?
If we agree it, and
if we agree it, well, I'm sure we will. I'm only saying if we are, can we? But I'm actually more than happy with it the way it is.
Well, Councillor Fleming, please.
I disagree. I agree with Councillor Stevens. I think that the time is now just to adopt gender neutral language. I've always used the word chair right from 2019. For me, it's the most appropriate.
Councillor Thompson.
Whatever happened to chairperson? That was a thing for a while.
I think I've ever been called chairperson.
Not here particularly, but it was a thing.
I think the
generally.
report recommends chair or chairperson, but that's the option.
Councillor Fluker.
Thank you, Chairman. Look, I think generally speaking, I don't have any problems with this at all. But I notice now that when internal emails now they've got references to what people want to be called, which I find a bit bizarre. But I think that as far as the role of chairman or chairperson or whatever, I'd like to think it's up to the chairman what they'd like to be called. And without making it too cumbersome, when you do your preamble, maybe you should confirm what you'd like to be called. I just think it gives it a bit of I don't have a problem with chairman, madam chairman. I always think madam chairman actually sounds quite nice, and I think it also it totally recognises the person. So I'd like to think that maybe perhaps the chair of all these committees would have some kind of their own input, and we don't tire ourselves down too much. But whilst I've got your attention, I'd go immediately to paragraph 3.4 because I know you're as keen as I am to support the nighttime economy. But I think I think Councillor Siddle should be commended for bringing this forward as the EDI member sponsor. Thank you.
I think when Councillor White was put as the chair of SNR, I actually asked her if she wanted to be called, what she wanted to be called, and I think it's quite nice. But anyway, we are where we are. I'm going to read. Mr. Leslie.
Yeah, thank you. I think the spirit of this is to provide choice. At the moment, it's not prescriptive. It's not saying you have to be, that you have to use that terminology. I think 3.5 gives that choice and says, it's up to individuals. So they want to be addressed as chairman or chairwoman. It's down to them. So the spirit really is to provide that choice for people.
So, point of process. I mean, we've got the recommendation really refers to an amendment to the Constitution and no more. So we're really actually talking about the written word in the Constitution, and it expands out slightly. So maybe we want to make that point clearer when we go to council to get this approved, because all we'll have is a resolution. So I just think maybe put that in, because I think when people read the recommendation to council, they'll think that's hard and fast, but that only refers to the Constitution. And I'm sorry to come back.
Mr. Leslie.
Yeah, just to say that the recommendation, I'll take that on board, just to say the recommendation does outline to refer to section 3.5, which has that. So I don't know if that sort of covers it, if that's all right.
No. Councillor Stevens, last time.
Changing the subject, if I may, in Appendix 1 on page 140, so this isn't about what people are calling themselves, this is about access to us as a council. It refers to monitoring trends, and it's about making phone calls instead of using the web, basically. We've still got black holes in our phone system. If you press 1 for this, 2 for that, 3 for the other, eventually somebody will say, go online, goodbye. And we haven't resolved this. I know now the trick for getting around it, but I get people all the time saying to me, well, you can't get through to anyone at Malden, and I have to tell them what the trick is to do it, and that's just nuts. Can we resolve that, please? I don't want to be told, go online, goodbye. Thank you.
I think Mr. Holmes could mention this, because something came to SNR, didn't it? Wasn't this discussed at SNR? I can remember banging on about it as normal.
Chairman, yes, obviously we're looking at the customer strategy. There are choices in terms of how the council deals with its customers and what systems it had. But I'll be interested to perhaps talk to you separately about the incident you found, and we'll certainly look at it. Maybe it's a fault, maybe it's not, but I can't comment obviously on your experience, but I will look at it for you.
Okay, thank you. All right, thank you, members. I'm going to put the recommendations that Mr. Leslie's already put, but I'm going to propose it. The recommendation, little one, is that the committee reviews the report and notes progress and the EDI action plan, and recommends to council that the council's constitution be updated to reflect gender neutral terms rather than him/chairman from the options as set out in section 3.5 of this report, and member salutations are removed as standard practice. I think that you'll take on board what Councillor Fluker said, so when it comes to council, it'll be clearly explained.
It refers to section 3.5
Yeah.
in the recommendation.
Yeah.
Which
Yeah, but you'll just make sure that that's clear when it goes to the council.
I'm happy to do that.
Yes, please, thank you. So I would like to nominate that, recommend that. Councillor Fleming, would you like to second me? Members, do we agree by assent?
Sorry, Chairman,
Councillor
could
Thompson.
it be noted that I do not assent, just in the minutes, please?
Can that be noted, please, Berner? Councillor Thompson does not agree to the recommendation. Berner.
Yes, Chairman, that's
Thank you.
absolutely fine.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Okay, members, any other items of business that the chairman decides are urgent? I have none. So, members, I'm going to close the meeting now, and I thank you for your contributions this evening. I now draw the meeting to a close at 8:30. As the meeting is now closed, members are advised not to enter into any further discussion, and please leave the meeting room via the exit door behind the top table, bearing in mind social distances. Thank you, and well done, members. Thank you. Good night.